You're listening. You're listening to Rims Gray Hair Chronicles, top 3 stories of the week. The world's gone strange, but we love a good peek. From shadows deep to the global stage, we bring the truth from age to age. With harmony bold and a skeptical tone, we dig up the news they don't want known. So stoke the fire and have a seat. This week's top 3 can't be beat. Pilgrim's Gray Chronicles.
Can't be beat. Pilgrim's Gray Chronicles, your Friday night top 3 stories of the week. I'm your host, Robert Clark, and I apologize for the technical difficulties that we had. The show will be released today, Saturday rather than Friday, because sometimes computers and microphones and software just suck and can be a nightmare. And anyway, let's get right to it. Got a lot to do today, but I am so thankful you're here and walking down that long road through this strange world of ours together as fellow pilgrims to watchtowers and inns and whatever the need of the hour may be. Sometimes we need rest and to gather together and meet and discuss things, and other times we need to be on the watchtower looking out there and seeing what's coming and warning others, right? So that is the theme of our show. I like the idea of us being stewards like Gandalf the Grey in Middle-earth. I like the idea of us being observers and not a part of the world system, which is why I chose the color gray, because I despise the black and white checkerboard of the Babylonian religious system, Masons, and so on and so forth. I don't like how they flip things, and I don't like how they perpetuate their balance, because it's unbiblical. So, with that being said, let's move on to our first story of the week. Because it's not just plain politics, it's not just finance, it's not just weather, or whatever other topic gets discussed. It's a war over sea dominion in the image of God and man. So let's connect some dots. Our first story, the sun unleashed solar storms, surveillance, blackouts in the ancient heavens. This week, sunspot AR4087, if that means anything to anyone, unleashed multiple. I say that because I don't trust necessarily that any of this mass coronal ejection stuff and any of this is real. There's a very real possibility that this could just be psyop stuff for other stuff that they really know that it is, but it gets blamed on this to hide other things. I can't. That's conjecture on my part, but it's based off of other things that, if you're familiar with this channel and what others discuss in regards to topics like this, you'll know what I'm saying. So anyway, it allegedly unleashed multiple X-class solar flares pointed directly at Earth. Not just pretty auroras, their high-level burst of plasma and radiation capable of knocking out power grids, GPS satellites, and communication. NASA, the, of course, very trustworthy organization, right, sounded the alarm, and global agencies scrambled into a coordinated drill led by SWORM, SWORM, yes, Space, Weather Operations, Research, and Mitigation. That's what it stands for. But here's what they're not telling you. Why now? Why this sunspot? Why this frequency? Why drills timed perfectly with real danger? They always do this, right? Whether it's this or anything else, like during the special time in 2020, there was a drill before it. And like so many things, I think it's a way that they get their stuff out there without causing a panic for their narratives and things of that nature. Also, why the massive rise in solar activity during an election year, global instability, and economic fragility? for some countries, right? So from a seed war perspective, this is not just nature, it's sign and signal. The ancients saw solar flares or signs in the sun and signs in the heavens as judgments and warnings or the rumblings of spiritual battle in the upper realms. And probably for good reason. Genesis 1 says the sun, moon, and stars were for signs and appointed times. Just like our Mazzaroth series, we have a 3-part series on the Mazzaroth on Mondays that discusses such matters. And what happens if the grid does go dark? If the satellites go down? No tracking, no banking, no messaging, no surveillance. The panopticon cracks. The digital beast flinches, and every government quietly runs simulations to see how long they could stay in control if the lights flicker. So I don't think this is really about solar weather. It's about control and what they're preparing for when they lose it. Just my conjecture and opinion, but I have a feeling many of you probably feel the same way, that we're being lied to about this. It's setting up a narrative for turning off the lights on us. Some people, I know a lot of QAnon people talk about 10 days of darkness. And by the way, I apologize for that. That is my dogs wandering into the studio because I forgot to close the door. And you can hear their nails clacking on our hardwood in my studio. I need to put a carpet down in here for less reflections, but I haven't done that yet. So I apologize for that. But I do love my dogs. They're great. All of them are rescues. And then story 2, the prisoner exchange. Is this ritual, reset, or rearmament? For those of you that don't know, Ukraine and Russia conducted what media called a symbolic exchange. 1,000 prisoners for 1,000, with 390 moved in the first phase through Turkey. On paper, it looks diplomatic. In the heavens, it smells like theater. Why now, and what changed? Right? This is the first coordinated large-scale swap in over a year. So there's a clear shift in strategy. And these aren't just random soldiers. Many are likely intel assets, high-level commandos, black ops operatives from both sides. And because they don't just swap 1,000 people for no good reason. They don't just choose random people. Just like nothing you hear on TV is random. The images you see, every word is accounted for. They have their meetings. A lot of money is spent. Nothing is random. Nothing is by accident. Even though sometimes they'll tell you, oh, well, we didn't mean to put that in there. BS. You absolutely went through meetings and intentionally always put everything that people are going to see and you've spent money on, lots of money. It's intentional for sure. Anyway, if you're preparing for the next phase of war, you swap pieces, right? You gather your Nephilim-enhanced bloodlines, you pull your seed back onto the board. Unless people think that that's crazy talk, go investigate it. If you go down that rabbit hole, you're going to find, through the MK Ultra program, all the way back to Project Paperclip, even before that, we are being taught by the they that I did a series on, or the little g gods, how to properly break human beings, control them, and split their spirit into different sections. So you have DID people, or people with multiple dissociative identity disorder, whatever you want to call it. It allows a person to be controlled and the original part of themselves to not even know it or be aware of it, unless they have a psychotic break, in which case their handlers just medicate the hell out of them or they disappear. And there's a lot more of these people than you think. And they do it through all kinds of outreach things, even psychology. And you would think, wait a minute, you mean a local psychiatrist could be involved? Yes. This is why so many people, it starts at the top and it weeds its way down into organizations like the Masonic lodges. And most of them have no idea that this goes on. Most of them are just in this for the connections for business, and they don't have the scruples to realize that the oaths they're taking are terrible oaths that they'll be called into possibly later if they show promise. But I guarantee you that there are medical professionals, psychologists, counselors, and so on. And I'm not saying all, because obviously there are good counselors out there. I'm just saying when these people work and these little G gods work, they go to where you have established trust, because that's where you're going to let your guard down, and that's where they get you. So always have your head on a swivel, like George Hobbs says, if you listen to his shows, or just be aware of such things and don't just poo-poo it, lest you wind up experiencing the things that many people write about that you're not paying attention to. So when I say you gather your Nephilim-enhanced bloodlines, you pull your seed back onto the board, it's not just crazy talk. So in Seed War terms, this is a blood reshuffle. Nations at war over territory are also pawns in a bigger game over inheritance, DNA, and the image of God and man. Russia and Ukraine are not just clashing over borders. They're involved in deep biotechnological projects, ancestral bloodline claims, and military experiments rooted in ancient occultism, just like Germany. Most nations have some level of that going on. And then you have to ask yourself, what kind of prisoners are they really trading, and why? So there's another rabbit hole for you to go down. And then number 3, oh, by the way, before I go on to number 3, I have some things I wanted to share with you that I came across during my work breaks. I like to go in and just, look and see what's going on out there. And sometimes I come across stuff that I always mean to share with you all and just either forget or I don't take proper notes. But here lately, I've been making a concerted effort to try to send these to myself so I don't forget to share them with you. And I mostly mean to do it on Wednesday nights, but I feel like this is probably a proper form to do it also. So one of the things I wanted to share with you, and this isn't necessarily news related, but it's with the theme of our channel because I'm a Christian. I filter things through a Christian perspective. And, that's why on my podcast, and at least on Spotify, I put myself in the religious section, not necessarily science or history or anything like that. So I wanted to play this for you. And anyway, hopefully I've got this set up properly so that we don't have any screw-ups. But I wanted you to hear this about before we're born and things of that nature, because I thought this was really interesting. So here we go.
What if before you were born, you sat down with the creator of the universe and you got to choose the person you would become? And imagine you said, I want to be courageous. And the creator replied, then I will give you monsters to face so you can conquer fear. You said, I want to be patient. And the creator replied, then I will make you wait so you can learn to trust the process. You said, I want to be wise. And the creator replied, then I will let you fail so you can learn the weight of your choices. You paused and then you asked, this sounds like a rough life. Can't I just have a good life? And the creator smiled and said, a good life isn't an easy life. A good life is the fire that forges you into something greater, like a phoenix that rises from the ashes. Maybe right now you're in that fire, but the words you say to yourself will determine how you emerge from the flames. The fire isn't breaking you, it's forging you. Join the Thrive Tribe in our bio if you want to be forged into the best version of yourself.
Yeah, well, whatever about that. But I just wanted you to hear that different perspective on how you can view things. I know in my life, oftentimes when I ask, in the past when I've prayed for patience, many Christians would tell you, be careful what you wish for. Because when you do pray for patience, how are you going to flex that muscle and work that muscle unless things are handed to you in your life to develop it, right? It's a process usually with God. He's not just going to magically, infuse you with patience. It's typically a process. I can't say that's always the case. I mean, we do know that God works in miraculous ways at times that are just instantaneous, but that's pretty rare. And it usually are moments in our world where you wouldn't want to have to be in that kind of a situation because there's lots of issues with that. Does that make sense? So usually when you see things like that occurring, it's during very troubling, problematic times, and or times of great turmoil that you really wouldn't want to be living in anyway. And that's when God moves in dramatic fashion. Another thing I wanted you to hear.
Evolution is based on 4 major ideas. None of them have ever been observed. Number 1, that life comes from non-life. We have not one single example of life coming from non-life. Number 2, that all the life forms that we have today came from single-cell life forms. Many people do not know that while we do have single-cell life forms that we call bacteria, we have no 2-cell life forms. We don't have 3-cell life forms. We don't have 4-cell life forms. We don't even have 5-cell life forms. That is, you go from single-cell bacteria to complex life forms. So there's no evidence that all life comes from single-cell life forms. The third postulate of evolution is that time and chance drive evolution forward, of course, and time works against evolution. The chance of one simple 100-unit protein coming together by accident this is a very big number. Time and chance make evolution absolutely impossible. The fourth postulate that evolution is based on is that what we see today, minor genetic variation in species, is evidence of macroevolution. So because cats are different colors, dogs are different sizes, that means that fish turned into cows. And of course, we know that that's not true because Mendel proved that all the genes that exist today, you can shuffle them around, but there are no new genes.
Watch how this professor.
So, as a Christian, I believe God created everything, and I do not subscribe to the idea of theistic evolution either. I don't think he used that kind of a process, unless you are referencing the type of process where things stay within their like or kind, but simply adapt to their environment. But the adaptations don't wind up creating an entirely different species, which requires more information to be present within the DNA, an increase of information, which doesn't seem to be possible. Rearranging of information, yes. Increases in it, unless there's some divine intervention, no. So I thought you would find that one interesting. I know I did, and I've got 2 more to share with you, if you'll be patient with me, before we get to our third story, which is the budget that broke the house, trillions, tips, and the Trojan horse of collapse. So just bear with me a second. Okay, so this next one has to deal with the concept of being spiritually dead. And anyway, I'll just let them explain it because I found it really interesting, this analogy. So here we go.
Watch how she beautifully explains this concept.
Yeah, that makes sense. So am I spiritually dead, you think? Like I'm going to hell, you think?
Well, let me explain it in a way that really helped me kind of understand the spiritually dead thing. So a glove was made in the image of a hand, right?
Yeah.
The 5 fingers, so that a hand can fit inside the glove. And with the hand, the glove is useful. You can use it and it has a purpose. But without the hand, the glove is lifeless.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Surprisingly, it does.
Okay, so track with me. In the same way, we were created in the image of God, right? So that God can live inside of us. And with God, we have purpose. We're filled with his power. We're filled with his strength. But without God, we're spiritually dead. Does that make sense?
I think it does, surprisingly. So you're saying I was made in the image of God so that God can live inside of me and give me purpose.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard somebody break it down like that before.
Okay, so I thought that was a pretty interesting analogy, and I don't necessarily disagree with it. I think it's a great way of illustrating the whole concept of why, without God, there is no real purpose. The other thing I would mention in regards to hell and things of that nature is that because lots of people are like, this doesn't seem fair that God would punish me for all eternity for just not loving him or whatever. But if you just stop and think about that for a minute, why would God force you into his presence if you don't love him, don't like anything about him, don't want to be with him? What kind of God would that be? I mean, he's giving you the gift to freely choose whatever you want to do. But in that process, makes an appeal to you that, hey, I gave you a will that is free. You can either choose to use it properly or not. And I just want you to know I love you enough to help you in that process and to have a relationship with me. But you're also free to go your own way. That's true love. If there's no other option and you're just forced to love somebody, if they're like a mechanical robot, that's not love. So in this first dichotomy presented to us, we have the free choice to reject, right? And so if you don't want to be in his presence, then he won't force you to be. But the result of that, the result you don't want, is that you're going to be with other people that are that way also, that don't care about God or his laws or his rules and wants to live according to their own rules. And then you've got a problem, because that's where we're at now. And you'll also be in a landscape and a place designed for people like that, separate, apart from God. That is hell, and it won't be pleasant. But if your attitude is one of rejection of God, you're probably not going to be happy in heaven either. And why would God force you to be in his presence when you don't love him, and you never have, and you don't want to? So, kind of think of it in those terms rather than, God just is mean. Because I don't see it that way. You just don't know him yet, and you've been lied to about him. So I got one last one to show you, and then we'll move on to story 3. Okay, so this next one has to deal with sin and the word sin. And I thought you would find it really interesting. I did. It's maybe a couple minutes long, but here we go.
You need to watch this.
What's interesting is if you go back to the original Hebrew that the Old Testament was written in, there's more than one word for sin. There's something used called iniquity. There's something that's translated transgression. The word iniquity is really interesting because in the original Hebrew, it breaks up into these 3 letters: a vav, a bet, and a nun. A vav is an eye being opened. A bet is a fish hook or a hook. And then a nun is the idea of like multiplying or fish multiplying. And so the word iniquity really pictorially means whatever your eye hooks into will multiply in your life. And so if you realize that what you set your vision to, your affection to, whatever you hook your appetite into, that's going to grow in your life. Well, now it's not so much about this behavior is bad and this behavior is wrong, that you need to understand that you're responsible, that for whatever grows in your life and multiplies is based off where you focused your affection. So pay attention to what you long for, what you want, where you look for shortcuts, where you accept things, because that's going to multiply.
Okay, so I agree with that. There's plenty of scriptures that tell you to protect what you see and your heart and so on and so forth. And it does multiply, doesn't it? And, we also hear that, I think what we call maybe addictions today are really the equivalent of what Scripture refers to as being a slave to sin. You think it's a pleasurable thing, and it is. Oftentimes the things we do in this world feels great to your flesh or your body, but it's a temporary high or rush or gain that has a immoral component to it often. And what winds up happening is you crave it more and more, and oftentimes the amount that you initiated it with, you wind up having to ever increase the amount. This is true of at least drugs and alcohol, but the same can be said of things like pornography or any any sin that you wind up becoming a slave to. And I would say, get on your knees and beg God if you have to help you with it. At least then you'll be in the fight, right? And ask him to help you no longer enjoy it, right? And in that way, you will start winning the fights more and more. Will you still trip and fall and screw up? Of course, but you have a God that loves you and is going to help you with it, and has provided a sacrifice for all your sins. That doesn't give you a free pass to just keep doing it. That would tell me that you don't have a right attitude towards it. But just know that God does love you and wants you to overcome it, whatever it is, right? And so he will help you the whole way through, unlike the enemy, who will continually discourage you and make you feel helpless and hopeless, which just makes you go towards that comfort of that sin, and then the cycle just perpetuates itself over and over and over again until you cry out to Jesus. So that will always be your win right there for help. And don't think just because you fail means it's over. Get yourself back up, dust yourself off, and let Jesus carry you across the finish line and help you. No matter how many times it takes, at least you're fighting, and you're not just, tossing your hands up and giving yourself over to it. Just fight to the end. So that's all I've got for you there. Let's move on to, and I hope you enjoyed those little clips. If you did, drop me a message or email us or whatever if you want more, because I'll be happy to do it. Probably do it anyway. But if there's other things you would like to hear, let me know. So, President Trump's 2025 budget bill passed by a single vote this week, extending tax cuts, lowering tax cuts on tips and overtime, which I think is awesome, because I think taxation is pretty much theft, slashing welfare programs like Medicaid, and pushing a nationalist economic narrative. And clearly, to most people, it sounds great. But there's a catch: $3 trillion in new debt projected over the next decade. So why push it through now and by such a narrow margin? See, I don't trust any of these people. I don't trust any of them. Do they occasionally do good things for whatever their purposes are? Sure. Sometimes it's just to trick you into trusting them. So I know that's not a message that a lot of people want to hear, but that's the reality of it. Most of these, in fact, I'm pretty sure every modern president is related to an ancient bloodline, and either directly or indirectly related to one another, and they're selected. So anyway, they know what's coming, and they need the middle-class calm before the storm. This is kind of the Trojan horse phase. You give the people a taste of financial relief while seeding the economy for collapse. Once the crash comes, the central banks, global bodies, and digital currency systems are ready to step in and replace the current structure. It's their MO every time. They build up the trust, they do all this different stuff, and then they create a bad situation. They all do. They all get together, decide the bad thing they're going to create, and then somebody is selected within their crappy little g God worshiping groups to be the saviors that you'll trust when they come along with a solution that makes everybody happy. Only trust Jesus. So in seed war terms, this is economic warfare against us. Those still holding property, small businesses, independents, family structures. And when the economy fails, the system will offer a lifeline, but it will come with terms, right? Compliance, digital IDs, and a biometric leash. And then you have to ask yourself, who survives when cash is gone? Who benefits when families are forced into dependency? And who stands to gain when the image of God is barcoded? I'm convinced that one of the ways the enemy, because we often think, why does Satan think he can win? Well, I don't think he thinks he can win through a direct challenge. I think the goal is to change you, either get rid of you altogether through death, or turn you against the one true God, And if you can't be turned, then turn you into something that's no longer human, like they did before the flood. These humans that had nothing but evil thoughts continually, all the time, and actions. I'm also convinced that Noah and his family were the only genetically pure people left on the planet. It's why they kept their records of their genealogies. It's why he's referenced that way. I know a lot of people will teach that it was because he was just a really good moral guy. No, it's more than that. The reference there in Jewish language, Hebrew language, is that he was pure like a sacrificial, unspotted, unblemished lamb or sacrificial type thing. And that's if you just look at the entire big picture of what was going on, it seems pretty clear that this was more about genetics. The whole seed war is you have two different lines, and it's both spiritual and genetic. Just keep that in mind. So in the sky, we have disruption of control through what I think is a false narrative from NASA. On the ground, you have rearrangement of pawns, and in the economy, you have soft collapse in progress, controlled. All three stories point to one thing, a restructuring of the world system from governance to resources to biology, and the war behind it isn't just political, it's cosmic. The seed war is alive and well. It never ended, right? And it's not going to until the Messiah returns again. And even then, it's just 1,000 years of his reign on earth, and then he gets unleashed again. I know a lot of people think we're in that season or whatever. We're not. And I've explained why, but I'm planning on doing it on specifically the generation that LT's Mixtape did a podcast on recently. I'm going to take that line by line and go through it and explain why we're not in the little season. Anyway, so in this particular week, it came in a solar flare, diplomatic sleight of hand, and $1 trillion ink. But we're going to stay sharp, grounded, and keep our lanterns lit, right? That's the week. 3 tremors in the system, 1 war still raging behind it all. But as you know, this is not just a podcast. It's a fellowship, a signal fire, and a call to wake up and walk together, right? Pilgrims on the road, walking in this world. So if what you heard today stirred something in you, please share it. Share it, share it, share it. Some of my videos take off, and it's primarily because of you sharing. Some videos you neglect to share, and they don't do as well. You know, sometimes they get 50 views, sometimes a couple of 100 views, but the ones that you really share with other people has an impact. You have an impact. You know, like some videos are in the thousands. So, and we're just a small show. You know, we're growing, but right now we're still small. So if you could share it, I would be eternally grateful. And if you see the signs and want others to see them too, you know, send it to someone. Send it an email. Send it however you want. If you're in a debate and you think that one of these videos would be helpful in that debate or structure or within a thread on X or something, copy, paste the link and share it on X. You know, we're trying to build a network of lantern bearers, watchers, and pilgrims who know that truth isn't trending, it's hidden, right? And we help to expose it. So if you want to be a part of that, please share it. And you can always subscribe to Pilgrim's Great Chronicles on Spotify, Apple, Spreaker, or wherever you listen. And we greatly appreciate it. We've had a couple of people let us know that they gave us 5-star reviews, and amen to that. Those of you who have taken the time to that, we are grateful, because that really, really helps. When people leave 5-star reviews, it means that it sends a signal to their algorithm that this is something people want to hear. And then what ends up happening is, you know how you wonder sometimes, well, how did that podcast come up in my feed? I'm so glad I discovered that because Spotify put that in my feed. Well, it's because of that. When you put a 5-star review, it's kind of an indirect way of sharing the podcast because Spotify will put it in front of people because you've gave it a 5-star review. But also, you can support our mission by supporting our band, Pilgrim's Gray, or our Etsy shop at etsy.com/shop Pilgrim's Gray. Just do a search for it. And I'll put it in the link at the description. And please email us with any comments. I read every email I can. We're still a small show, and I have the time to read every email that comes to me, every one of them. And sometimes I read them Wednesday night. Or if you want to be on the show, that's the way to contact us, at our email that I'll also put in the description. And of course, always follow us. We're on X, we're on YouTube, and every major streaming platform. So come check us out. But I would just say we're not necessarily here to go viral. I would be doing this no matter how big or small the audience is. I'm really here to go deep and to wake people up, to dig up the roots, shine a light into the ruins, and, to have fellow pilgrims walk with us, right? Pilgrim's Great Chronicles. Anyway, we are signing off, and I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. I know I plan to. See ya.